Hi, hi, hi. Hey, hey. And welcome to another edition of Talk More Talk, a solo Beatles videocast. This is a bi-weekly show that we do every other Monday night at 9 p.m. Eastern on our YouTube channel. And here on this show, we talk almost on every single program about the solo careers of the Beatles, their history, their music, songs, albums, you name it. I'm Ken Michaels, one of the four regular co-hosts of this show. Hopefully, you're familiar with my radio program that's been on the radio for 41 years on the Beatles called Every Little Thing. I also am involved with another Beatles talk show podcast called Things We Said Today. And I have my own YouTube channel, which is just exclusive Beatle content that you'll find on there called Ken Michaels Radio. And I'm being joined by my regular co-hosts on the show. First of all, a woman who's known as the Queen, and she is, of Beatles social media. She is the author of the fine book, Songs We Were Singing, Guided Tours Through the Beatles' Lesser Known Tracks. Also, Michael Jackson FAQ, All That's Left to Know About the King of Pop. And this fine book right here that she collaborated on with Ken Womack, Beatles scholar and one of the best Beatles authors going. And she is a regular contributor to Beatle Fan magazine. You see her all the time on panel discussions at the Fest for Beatle fans. And that's our own Kit O'Toole. Hi, Kit.
Hi, Ken. Hello, everybody. And this is going to be a very special show tonight. So, very excited.
We're covering a very special album. And
Indeed.
we've all said in the past here on this show how much we've enjoyed this album. We have Tom Hunyadi with us. He is one half of the team, along with Andy Nichols, of the Paul McCartney, the solo Paul McCartney podcast called Two Legs. And every week he's cranking out the shows with some aspect of Paul McCartney's career. Hello, Tom.
Hello, Ken, Kit, Joe, and our special guests. Can't wait to get this one started. It's going to be fun.
And of course, we have Joe Mayo with us. He has the very popular Mean Mr. Mayo channel, where he talks about the Beatles all the time, all kinds of things in pop culture. He even does a lot of shows on movies as well. And welcome, Joe, of course, to the program.
Thanks, Ken. Hello, Kit. Hello, Tom. And hello, Mark. It's a pleasure having you here, Mark.
Thank you.
And with Ringo Starr just celebrating his birthday, we thought we should do something special for Ringo. And we always talk about anniversaries here on this show. We know the Ringo album from 1973 has a 50th anniversary coming up in November. But then back in March, the Ringo Rama album had its 20th anniversary. So we thought, why not invite Mark Hudson, who produced the album with Ringo and was so involved with all the songs, co-writing with Ringo, playing on all the songs, to invite us to our show. Mark has had an incredible career. You know him all the way back to his days with the Hudson Brothers. He's had a successful career as a producer, producing acts like Ozzy Osbourne, Aerosmith, Cher, Hanson, and of course, Ringo Starr. We are more than pleased and honored to have him on our show. Welcome, Mark Hudson, to Talk More Talk.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
This is the album, as Kid was holding up. This one's signed by Ringo, actually. This is the deluxe edition right here.
Yeah.
Ringo Rama. And for you, Mark, you may not be familiar with our show, but we're all going to ask you questions. We're going to go around like a round table here and ask you questions about the album. But before we do, why don't you just tell the folks how you came to work with Ringo? Did you know him back in the days when you were in LA, where you also hung out with John Lennon? Because I know John was aware of you.
Yes.
And not the Marx Brothers. Didn't he say you were the Marx Brothers?
Yes. Close.
But you're not ahead of myself. Was Ringo aware of the Hudson Brothers?
He was. And I knew him when he had a permanent. So if you look back at the Ringo pictures when he had the curly hair, I knew him and he knew us, but it was never anything musical. He was a Beatle. I was a drummer in the Hudson Brothers, and I only learned to play drums watching and listening to Ringo Starr. Mm-hmm. So all of his stuff, I wasn't like Vinnie Colaiuta or the guy in Rush, paradiddling. It was Ringo-esque. bop, bop. It's that great stuff.
Mm-hmm. I know you said,
by the way.
Yeah, how the Ed Sullivan Show and their appearances, changed your life as it did for so many other people.
Millions of people. And I had written a song called The Artist. And, John Lennon was my biggest inspiration. And this song called The Artist was kind of Lennon-esque. And Ringo heard it and said, "Oh, he kind of sounds like John. Maybe I could write with that guy." And I got the phone call, "You want to write with Ringo?" I went, "No, I'm working with Menudo now." Are you kidding? Are you kidding? Absolutely. He came to my studio, and my studio is like a Beatle museum. And we wrote a song. And he really had fun because it was more, Ringo's not one of those hip guys that has the yo cats playing. He was in a band, and he loved the fact that my studio, it was a little band, and he felt comfortable playing there. So we did a song, a couple of songs. I think King of Broken Hearts was one of them. And then he said to me, if ever, I said, Ringo, if ever you make a record, you should probably try to get, George Martin to do it. And he goes, "If I make a record, it's only going to be with you."
Uh-huh.
And never in my life, for the first time ever till this day, one guy stood up for me, and it was Ringo Starr, who went to the label and said, "I'll make a record, but I'll only make it with that bastard." He didn't want to know about the other. He wanted to make it with me. And he stood up and said I was going to be the producer. And that was the beginning of that relationship and my joy forever. Because of that. Imagine that, him standing up going, "I want that guy and nobody else." I was pretty blessed, very grateful. And I worked my way down to being somewhere between the 9th or 8th Beatle. So I was working down for millions, and I kept getting closer and closer. But 8th or 9th.
First of all, I have to apologize. I've had a lot of problems with my camera here, so if I cut out, I'm just going to keep trying to get back in. But that was really wonderful of Ringo to stick up for you that way.
It usually doesn't happen, just so that you'll know. In so many other instances, it doesn't happen. Either the record label says, "You're working with him, you're working with them," or the guy goes, "I want to get a giant producer," and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And Ringo said me. Pretty lucky.
And Ringo's in a position where he could command a lot of big name producers too. So.
Oh gosh, but a lot of times they don't do that. I think he felt comfortable. I think it was sort of going backwards a little bit, because it wasn't like yo cats with people rubbing our necks and people delivering food. It was guys above a Thai food restaurant playing music in this little room. And I think he loved that. And I think that was the attraction.
I think he talked about that when Choose Love came out. He loved the fact that it was recorded in a small room, everybody sweating,
real horrible. There's no air conditioning. He suggested that we work in a thong, but that was too much. That's just his sense of humor. He didn't really mean it.
Can you explain at this time in his career, Ringo is so used to having success, the incredible success with the Beatles, the first 5 years of his solo career, and then the hits dried up and the albums weren't selling like they used to be. He released what we all here on this show consider a great album, Time Takes Time, in 1992. And that album didn't go anywhere. What was his state of mind when he worked with you? Did he think...
I worked on that album, by the way.
Yeah, I know.
Bill Ramone, who was my teacher, taught me how to produce. I got to work on that record with Ringo. But I think because it was multiply produced, Don Was, Jeff Lynne, Peter Asher, I don't know who the guys were. I think Ringo needs that solid guidance of music, like George Martin, or like Richard Perry, whatever it would be. And I think he missed that on that record. It's always about the songs.
Right.
You know, that's the other real important thing as a songwriter. It's got to be about the songs first and then the musicians second. It's true. I mean, you're going to replace Ringo Starr on drums, but I can get you 17 guitar players that can play really great, or a bass player, whatever. But I think that he likes a core of people to be there because that's where he's comfortable, just like he was with the boys, you know.
Right. So when you started working with him on Vertical Man, was there a mindset of, I got to have a comeback, or was he more concerned about just putting out music that he was happy with?
No, you know what? I mean, I think when the dry period happened, there was other ingredients that made that not work. And because I was such a Beatle fan and I studied them, knowing stuff, I made him feel comfortable like John used to make him feel comfortable. With a little help from my friends, that big note. John was out there going, yeah, and he was like faking it. And Ringo loves that. And I think in Vertical Man, we became a family. And I think he loved doing that. And so many people are on it. George Harrison, Paul McCartney, the list goes on and on. Alanis Morissette, huge humans. And when you're a Beatle, there was one of the songs called Without Understanding. Right. And you know, good vibrations. And he went, oh, it'd be great if I could get Brian to come down. He picks up the phone and he calls Brian Wilson. And Brian Wilson comes to my studio and sang the background on that. And Brian is genius, but has his own way of working. He walked in and said, you're very peppy. You take pills? I went, no, I don't. He goes, before we start, can I have a Perrier and a coffee? And I'm sure. So I said to the second engineer, go get a Perrier and a coffee. He brings it back, and Brian Wilson goes, I hate Perrier, and I can't drink coffee. And Ringo looked at me like, it's going to be a long day. But after he heard the song, it clicked in. I saw it. And I'm a Beach Boy freak. If you get backing vocals, if you get Beach Boys and Freddie Mercury, a little Crosby, Stills and Nash, and the Beatles, there's nothing better than that. And it clicked in, and he went, give me 16 tracks. 16 tracks. And I'm making notes of everything that he's doing. No vibrato. You're not allowed to sing with vibrato unless you're the lead singer. Hey, 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 hey. And within 20 minutes, he sang this body of background that was just like stunning. And he said, and every vocal track gets 4 tracks. And he said the reason of that is because when you see a wavelength, it usually does this. But if you do 4 of them, it becomes so big, it becomes a thick cluster of sound. And I'm going, oh, I can be hit by a truck now. Here I am with a Beatle and a Beach Boy. Doesn't get any better. And at the end of the thing, Brian Wilson went, hey, Ringo, this is great. A Beach Boy and a Beatle in the room. Can I get a copy? And as he finished the word copy, Ringo went, no, like shouted it. And he, yeah, I got to go to supper. And he walked out and turned left and went to dinner. Not Ringo, Brian Wilson. It was magical. That record brought him back. The record brought him back into wanting to record again. It was the important part. He wanted to start making music all over again because he had. So it was good.
And we've noticed, I mean, like I mentioned, Time Takes Time. A lot of effort was put into quality songs. And then once you started working with Vertical Man and then Ringo Rama, I Want to Be Santa Claus. Thank you for helping us. The only Beatle to put out a Christmas album, legitimate. And Choose Love. The songs are strong on all of them. That's the one thing that you take away, because the emphasis is on how strong the song is, melodically, lyrically, and songs that work for Ringo.
Absolutely. They've got to fit. They have to fit his style. and his voice. And because I was such a Beatle freak, I always knew what he was singing with them. So I geared the keys to be a comfortable place that he could handle. And it became easy. And pretty weird, because now and then he would do a Beatle thing on the drums and just look at me like, I bet you don't know that one. I went, of course, that's the beginning of Glass Onion, you bastard. Like I knew all of his stuff. I knew, and he goes, you know more about me than I do. The truth,
which is possible.
I'm a fan. I'm a fan.
All right. One more question before I pass you over to Kit. But I think for many of us that look at these albums that you worked on with Ringo, every single song, there's multiple songwriters. Ringo, Mark Hudson, Gary Burr, Steve Dudas, Dean Gracall. When you have so many songwriters, what is the function of each one of them? Is there any set formula in the way that you guys wrote together?
No, we wrote like a band, and it wasn't a matter of everyone having an equal say. Ringo had the say.
Mm-hmm.
I was second in command. There's a few there that, like For Love, were just Ringo and I, and Christmas Eve is just Ringo and I. In fact, Vertical Man, it has Ozzy Osbourne on it. But when we're sitting in the studio, Ringo has that theory of, we're all here, write a word, get a third, as we would say. And it's like, spread the wealth, because the joy is what was really important. But it wasn't like, Beyonce now has 9 writers on every, and I don't even know what that is. And some of the stuff in our case, when guys were credited, didn't, they might have said a preposition, and then okay, you're in. But usually the concept, why am I wrong all the time, was Ringo, instant amnesia. He that's just like in the Beatles, Been a Hard Day's Night or 8 Days, whatever the stuff that he would come up with, he did the same with us. And it was pretty inspiring when he would say this stuff, and then we just would write a song around it. And it was fun. And easy, really.
Mm-hmm.
He's easy to write for.
So he was coming up with songs that became the song titles.
Oh, God, yeah. A lot. In fact, there was one song when Tripping on My Own Tears.
Mm-hmm.
And we were in a meeting, and some guy said, I cried so hard I was tripping on my own tears. And Ringo looked at me, and I looked at him, and doing, there it was. So I kind of like wrote it something on my hand, and there becomes a title of a song. Instant Amnesia came from Ringo, because he was going through a spot where he goes like, oh, I don't like how I drum anymore. It's all the same, and and he went to lunch. But when he said that to me, that triggered me. Really? You're the greatest drummer in rock, in pop. It's you. You're Ringo Starr. So I said, let's write something that really kicks ass. And Instant Amnesia almost has a Zeppelin feel to it. Made his drum sound off, and he came in and played drums like he was 20. And that became something that turned him on, because he got pushed lightly, not heavy, just sort of, are you kidding? You're Ringo Starr, don't be crazy. Oh, yeah. And next thing you know, when he heard the music, he sat down and I could see it in his face. And then he just started playing, and it was heaven. Heaven. One of my favorite tunes.
And for me, and for probably a lot of people watching this right now, I wish he did more songs like that.
Well, me too. I mean, I think things have changed a little bit now, because, I'm really an old school guy. I don't want to fall into computers and auto-tune, and everything's moved on the grid and that. And a lot of times that's easier. But I actually enjoyed the work part of it.
Mm-hmm.
I loved was the work, and so did he, and that I'll carry with me for the rest of my life.
There's a body of work here that you should be so proud of, Mark. You know, so many times I've said best albums that Ringo's done: the Ringo album, Time Takes Time, and then Vertical Man, and Choose Love. You know, that's what it is for me. And I do like a lot of what he did after that. But just in terms of the strength of the songs and the consistency of the quality of the songs. And I think that the chemistry between, you know, you guys and the Roundheads was just so perfect for Ringo.
Yeah. Well, you know what? We were all Beatle fans. And we approached him as if we were pretend Beatles. You know, and that's the weird thing with going to Paul's house and me singing background with him. Would always pretend that I was John and one of my brothers was Paul, but there I am going, ooh, and I look over and right next to me is Paul McCartney. Thank God I was wearing brown pants. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we're going to follow that with Kit.
Wow, that's a hard act to follow, let me tell you. But other things you said are a good lead into what I was going to ask you about when you talked about the work and you know, crafting the album. One of the things that really has always struck me about Ringo Rama is the overall sound of it. That from the very first track, Eye to Eye, there's such a it's a harder edged album. Not every single song on it, but you know, it's the mix on it, the sound on it. I mean, it just comes to the speakers at you. I mean, it's just really, you know, this is not a technical term, but in your face. I mean, it really is.
I loved that approach, and I actually think, you know, Ringo would complain that in the early Beatle records, because everything was like bounced down, you know, I never heard me drums, because by the time the basic tracks got bounced down so much that the drums got quieter. And remember, I was a drummer, so the louder the drums, the happier I was. And I made sure that on that record especially, that I really let him be prominent, which forced the band to play with the energy that you're talking about. That aggressive, edgy would be a good word. And not every song, but still.
Absolutely. And so that's what I was going to ask you about. There is this you know, bit of a harder edge to this album. And so was that something that, you know, that was intentional from Vertical Man?
Yes, we actually consciously tried to make it was the same players again, so it became more comfortable. And then we could push the envelope to have more edge and still be safe within that. And it was a conscious thing that we did. No question about it.
Okay. Yeah. Yep. And that leads me to, and you've already talked about it a bit, but I did have to ask you about Instant Amnesia, because I just think that is one of the, you know, riskiest and greatest songs that Ringo has ever done. I mean, and as you said, Ken, I wish you've done more. I just love it.
It was interesting because that whole middle section that sounds like he's playing vibes, that's Ringo playing drums that were tuned into vibes. It wasn't Lionel Hampton. It was Ringo and Charlie Hayden, the great jazz bass player.
I was going to ask you about that. How did Charlie Hayden get involved in this?
Charlie Hayden I'm sober, like 21 years, no drinking and drugging. And the late, great Charlie Hayden was in the rooms, and I phoned him up. And I figured, when you can use the Beatle card as a weapon, they're always going to answer you. Charlie, yeah, solid, Jackson. Listen, I know this sounds really strange, but I would love you to come and play on Ringo's record. Ringo, what time do you need me there? 1 o'clock. Solid, Jackson. Charlie Hayden.
Yeah.
It's good to use the Beatle card when you can.
Oh, but it's just such a fascinating song because it goes, when you said Led Zeppelin, I thought, yes, that's exactly what I thought. It goes from Led Zeppelin to jazz to psychedelic rock. I mean, how did this come about? I mean, how did you do this?
The key to that, like, I'm a nice bunch of guys. So, my head's like a bad neighborhood. You should never go in there alone. Because I think about this stuff and I would bring it up. And look, Ringo's a Beatle. Tomorrow never knows. Like, for the first drum, boom, chop, da, da, da. So experimental, he was teaching me how to be experimental. So when it came to Instant Amnesia, I wasn't afraid. So let's make it heavy so you can really play those drums loud. And then let's kind of get fruity and jazzy and you can do that thing. And then the psychedelic ending was like we all took LSD and just flew to another universe. But we loved it. It was great. I love that song.
Yep.
There's some great drumming on there for Ringo on that one.
No, I know. And that was the one when he said before he went to lunch, "Oh, I'm not a good drummer anymore. It's all the same. And I've been doing it so long."
Really?
He said that to me. He went to lunch and I went, "Oh, no, you don't, Mr. Starkey." And that's what instant end. He came back and said, "Sit down and play that." And he heard the groove and then just went off. I didn't have to say. It was the easiest job producing him because I never really had to say too much. He was the best guy for playing a song than any musician I've ever worked with. He knows to play the song. And that's what he did on that. And to me, it's one of the drumming performances ever.
That's actually what I was another question I wanted to ask you, because you mentioned that in an interview, that one of the reasons Ringo is a favorite drummer is that he knew how to play the song. What did you mean by that?
Because, it's like, when we got close enough, I could go down the Beatles street a little bit and get answers. And I said to him, because I studied him as a drummer. And I would say, "How did you come up with that?" And he goes, "Well, I just played the backbeat. And then when they would shut up, I'd do a drum fill." There it is. He stayed out of the way. It wasn't like, more of me, let me paradiddle and do drums. He just like, nothing you can do that can't be done. Dum, dum, da, dum. He just stayed there, right with the song. But then when he would add the drum fill, that's when you go, oh. And because he's a left-handed drummer playing a right-handed kit, he would always lead his fills with his left hand because he was left-handed. Because usually you're playing, and the right hand is the one that leads your drum fill. He would lead his drum fill with the left hand. And that's why his stuff had its own thing that's very, very difficult for people to recreate. That simple. Wow. And during the one album, we were at Abbey Road with George Martin, and they were playing. You remember the Cirque du Soleil thing where they're using different parts of the record, and we were sitting there, and I hear these drums, and I go, "Wow, those are the drums from Maxwell Silver Hammer." And Ringo went, "No, they're not." "Yeah, they are." "No, they're not." "Yeah, they are." And then George Martin turned around and goes, "Richard, he's right." And Ringo looked at me. And then another one comes up and go, "Well, isn't that the guitar part that's under Bulldog?" "No, it's not." "Yes, it is." "No, it's not." "Yes, it is." And it's like 3 times. And every time George Martin turned around and go, "Richard, he's right." Ringo then grabbed his drumsticks and signed them to me and goes, "Here, don't sell them at Sotheby's, you bastard."
Yeah.
Because
Great.
He knew I was such a fan. All of his drums he knew.
That's great.
It's weird working with someone that you love. It's a weird thing because he could almost not do anything wrong. Like whenever I'd wear a kilt, and because I played bass on all that stuff, my inner McCartney, and some piano stuff, but I'd be wearing a kilt and he'd go, "Ma, keep your legs closed." Like that was a big thing for him. Telling me, close my legs. Okay. So I did. He's a Beatle. Who wouldn't?
Ringo, of course.
Yeah.
Before we move on, there's a viewer question I want to mention because I had the same question. What was it like in the studio recording Never Without You? Because, boy, that's an emotional experience just listening to it. I can't imagine what it was like just, being there. I mean, what was it like?
It was a rough one on him. Gary Nicholson in Nashville and myself and Ringo wrote the song, but we had to sort of stay out of the lyric because the lyric meant so much to him about his dear friend. And when we cut the track, Ringo would get too emotional, so he couldn't sing it. So I became stunt Ringo. We were young, because I could kind of do his voice, and I became pretend Ringo. So the song was coming out beautiful. And Ringo says again, it'd be great if we get Eric to come down and play. And I want to go, oh yeah, sure, I have his number. Yeah, right. But Village, Surrey, there was a little store, and I went to buy some chips and drinks for the boys. And standing in line is Eric Clapton with milk and eggs. And I think when I actually saw him, I made a noise like, yeah, because I couldn't believe Eric Clapton was shopping. Do you always think when you're that famous, you have someone named Shecky or Murray buying your groceries? He was there with a carton. And I figured, I better go up there. Now you have to understand, this face can be pretty scary. And I walked up to him and said, like, Eric, my name is Mark Hudson. And he's kind of like stepping back like, this guy's crazy. And went like, I'm producing Ringo down the street. And we wrote a song for George Harrison. And he'd love you to come and play on it. And he goes, okay. I run home. Ringo, he's running to Eric Clapton and he's going to come and play. And Ringo calls him. Eric Clapton shows up, not with an entourage, not with a roadie, lifts up his trunk. There's his guitar and his Fender Tweed, bringing it in himself and sitting down. And I can't believe it's like Eric Clapton. So Ringo goes, let's play the song. He plays him the song, and they both get a little teary-eyed because they both love George so much. And Eric went, Ringo, great vocal. And Ringo said, it's not me, it's Mark. And Clapton looked at me, and I went, is it because Ringo got emotional? He goes, and I go ahead, Mark does all four of us. Go ahead, Mark, do John. And he's making me imitate the other Beatles. And I'm completely mortified and humiliated. But Clapton, he goes, still good vocal. Sits down, puts on the guitar, and goes, where do you want it? I said, wherever you want to. And then it was a take and a half. And he did that thing. And it was so beautiful. And the meaning of it was so important to both of them. I was more or less along for the ride. But the song, its value, because Ringo and George were really tight. Ringo and Eric were really tight. And the song got a good goodbye from two of his best friends. I love that song.
Me too.
Very proud.
Yes.
I just ask, I know that when Ringo has talked about that song, he said that in the very beginning, he was writing a song as a tribute to Harry.
Yeah.
And then he thought, why not add John Lennon into it? And then George Harrison's, but it became too busy a song for him. So then it became just a song about George. Were you there to witness when he was trying to write about John and about Harry?
Yes. In fact, later on in that record, there's a song called Missouri Loves Company.
Right.
And it actually says in the end, we miss you, Harry. And I do like a, like he used to sing. and that took care of that thing.
Right.
I'm so influenced by John Lennon. I was singing background. Gary Burr and I were singing background. And Ringo goes, Mark, you're sounding too much like John. And I went, I can't help myself. I'm not copying him. He was my reason to sing. And he goes, stop it. Okay. So he gave us one day off. We went to London, went to Camden Lock. and they have Beatles stuff there, and they had these pictures, and I saw a picture of John that I'd never seen before, wearing kind of a military hat, and I'd never seen the picture before, and it was like an 11 by 14. So I bought it, and I didn't tell Ringo. And this one's a rough one. I can't be stopped. The thing that I need someone to stop me, because I can't stop myself. It's like musical Tourette's. I took the picture and I did like a circle, like in a cartoon. And I wrote, he sounds like me, so let him be, you midget bastard. On the thing, like a cartoon. And the picture of John with those words. And I said it on Ringo's lyrical thing. He was going to sing a song. He comes in from lunch, goes, all right, boys, let's go get it. Goes into the room. He sees the picture. And there's like, the look on his face was a little scary. Not mad, but shocked. He goes, Mark, come out here. And I'm thinking, this is it. I'm fired. I'm going to get to finish the record. I make one bad John Lennon joke, and now I'm going to be frisbee to the cornfield. And I walk out and points at it. And I turned it sort of like Woody Allen. I'm sorry, Ringo, I was verklempt. I was trying to make an excuse. And he goes, what about this? And it was, you midget bastard. I wrote it down as if it was John. He goes, how did you know that John used to call me that? And when he said that, it was like, and I saw his face kind of well with a bit of a tear. And I was once again wearing brown pants because it was, and he goes, how did you know? And I didn't know. And now there that was, and that got us to another folk. But the whole relationship was like that the entire time. It was like that. We were having so much fun. And then sometimes it would cross the line and be too much fun. And if anyone's going to yell at me, it might as well be a Beatle.
Yeah.
Okay?
Wow.
Yeah.
Right.
Amazing. Tom?
Lots of stories. It's one of my favorite songs, Never Without You, though.
Yeah. Brilliant track. Thank you, Mark, again for being here and taking our questions on this. Really,
No
I think it's a very strong album that you helped create. And being someone that does a Paul McCartney podcast, I'd regret if I didn't ask you about English Garden and incorporating the lyrics to Let 'Em In into that song. So if you can enlighten us to that.
Paul McCartney guy, I'll give you a couple.
Yeah.
On English Garden, all of those sounds, like the horse, and we went and created. There's actually a picture of Ringo and I out in the rain with umbrellas,
right,
recording the rain. And
is that it right there on the back? Yeah.
Yeah. And there it is. And by the way, I don't know if you guys can see that, but that's Ringo and I at Paul's house. The mill.
It's a little blurry. Yeah. It's the background. What does the
Yeah. Hey.
But that's all right.
Anyway, the at the end, Ringo's singing it. In my English garden. And I love that song too. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, out of the blue, he just goes, someone's knocking at my door. Somebody, and I'm going, oh God, here goes the lawsuit. Thank you. Here goes the lawsuit. And I felt like, who's the kid that looks like a leprechaun who just won a lawsuit from Marvin Gaye?
Ed Sheeran.
Ed Sheeran, right, the leprechaun. I thought, oh no, English Garden has nothing to do with knocking at me. So Ringo's, oh, don't worry. And he calls up Paul. And Paul says, I'll just talk to the publisher. And Ringo said, I'm talking to the bloody guy that wrote it, you bastard. And Paul, and then we just left it alone. So we did it for nothing. And that goes to show you, we all wanted to create the Beatles arguing because we were so brokenhearted over their split. They loved each other the entire time. Yeah, they argued like anybody. Yeah, they did that. But if you look at Ringo's postcards from the boys, they were sending postcards to each other the entire time on vacation. They loved each other like completely. So when Ringo did that to Paul, that's what it was. And my other McCartney thing was, I think it was on Vertical Man, a song called What in the World Can I Do?
Right.
Living in a world without you. Paul goes, that sounds pretty Beatley. And Ringo, I know, I told Mark, it sounded Beatley. And Paul went, Rich, you're a fucking Beatle. If you're gonna steal, and it was so great because in his studio he had all that stuff from Abbey Road. The bells from Penny Lane, the Mellotron. This, and he did the beginning of Strawberry Fields, and we sang it. And Jeff Emmerich was engineering, Ringo's in there, and Paul and I are out there, and I'm teaching him the chords. And there's one, because I don't read music, because I don't think McCartney does either. There's a thing there, A demented, and I just called it a fruity chord. And Paul went, fruity chord? What's the fruity chord? And I went, well, it's this. And I played the chord. And he goes, I call it fruity. And he thumbed me for 8 minutes. Fruity chord. Oh, yeah. Fruity chord. What a chord. And
excellent.
And it was so weird because as he's writing on my chart, I'm thinking, okay, just to Mark, nice working with you. Love Paul. But he's got this assistant named John, who's great. And anytime anything happens, John just runs by, grabs anything that's in the way, and it disappears. So that doesn't happen. So Paul and I are singing background. And then Ringo, as a joke, goes, oh, there he goes again, shaking his bloody head. He goes, I was the one that invented that in the Beatles, not him. Goes, I only knew it. There were so many screaming girls, they would go, ooh, and I knew what part of the song it was. And Paul looks at me and goes like, there he goes again. And that little fun argument kind of starts. Right. Well, I go in and Paul's ready to play bass. And there he is with the Hofner bass, still with the set list on it. And I got to play John's Gibson. So I'm in heaven. I'm thinking, Lord, if you're going to kill me, let the plane crash in the building now, because this can't be better. And McCartney's playing the bass, and he sounds just like Paul McCartney. Jeff Emmerich is the engineer, Ringo standing next to me. But the fruity chord bass note was supposed to be a C sharp, and Paul kept hitting a C. And I looked at Ringo and I went, the fruity chord, Rich, he keeps hitting the wrong note. And Ringo goes, I'm not going to tell him. And I look at Jeff and he goes, don't look at me. I'm like, oh God. So it's going to be me. And I'm thinking, here I go again. I'm going to press a button and I'm going to be frisbeed out of Sussex, never to be. And I turned to Woody Allen again and I pressed the button. Paul? Yeah, Ma. Yeah, look, brother. Yeah. Thumbing me more than a human should thumb. So, the one, the fruity chord. Oh yeah, the fruit. I love the fruit. Oh, you're hitting a C note, and it's supposed to be a C sharp. And I'm waiting for, who do you think you are? You know who I am? I was waiting for that. And he went, oh yeah, C sharp. Thumbed me for about 30 seconds, and then just played it. And I was thinking it was the end of my life. That was the end of my life. But McCartney was so great, so friendly. So I got to sing background with him. Me and Paul, it's just like, are you kidding?
Right.
In heaven.
That's awesome.
And so the whole so someone's knocking at the door. Ringo just said, screw the publisher, I'm talking to the writer. And they laughed.
There you go.
Done.
That's funny. Yeah. We mentioned, all the people that, play a part and the special guests that appear on his own. It seems like, whoever he asks, it's just, yes, when do I show up? And I love that. One one of my favorite songs on the album is "Write One for Me." I love the double meaning to that. I'm a big Willie Nelson fan, so if you can talk a little bit about that track.
Well, it was great. Ringo actually wanted to write something and approach Willie. So Gary Burr and I had this idea. A young man strumming in a bar, strumming his guitar for hours and hours. And Ringo loved the song, came in, we all finished it together. And then he called Willie and said, can Willie come and sing background? So we sent Willie the tape. All of a sudden, his bus shows up at my studio, which is like a huge bus. And the call goes, Mark, Willie's in the bus. Can you go in there? So, are you kidding? Run downstairs and knock on the bus door. And when I opened the door, just a waft of smoke. I had to take a surprise just for going on. And there was Willie Nelson, and like just the coolest guy ever. And he goes, that's really a good song. I went, Willie, just the fact that you're doing this means so much to me. He goes, oh, pshaw. Comes up to the studio, and he looks, and they were filming it, and he goes, Ringo, I'm doing my part in the song, and I hope I don't fuck it up too much. Goes, okay. And they sang it twice, and it was beautiful. His harmonica player came and played harmonica. We took pictures, and he goes, well, you don't need drugs when you're in this studio. It's so darn colorful, I don't need to smoke anything. And I wanted to smoke the Buick before he came up here, but I let it be. He was fantastic. Everybody that worked on this stuff is like,
right.
I feel like, where's Waldo? How did I end up with all these people? Dave Gilmore and Willie Nelson. How did that happen?
Timothy B. Schmidt.
Yeah.
Excellent. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No. It's just like all of the guest stars, Sean Colvin. I mean, people were showing up because they wanted to be part. The Beatles have that impact. And Ringo even has, I'm not putting the other guy down, but Ringo sort of has that. He could be the postman. Oh, hello, love. He's not doing, oh, darling. He's just sort of that guy. And that guy is a safety net. And it's a net that can really be loved in a big way. And he possesses that. It's in his personality. It's in his drumming. It's in his songwriting. And in his singing voice. Same thing.
Yeah. I love the track because it reminds me of Paul's Right Away as well, as it has two different meanings. You can play around with that. So that's one of the things I really love about it. But one little funny thing, I don't know if I'm sure you guys did this on purpose, but on the back there it says produced by Mark Hudson and Ringo Starr, and then produced by Ringo Starr and Mike Hudson. Was there? We
were always fighting for credit. Like he would write a lyric, and then he would sign my lyric. And then he'd come up with a good idea, and I'd put in parentheses, written by Mark Hudson. So it was our sort of in-joke that we constantly kept that going. So on the records, it was produced by Mark Hudson, Ringo, Mark Hudson. And that was our tipping our hat to our own sense of humor. Like he has an incredible sense of humor. Like his sense of humor is great. Just great. And that's why we did that. And we did it all the time. And whenever we would take credit for each other's work. It was our in joke,
Yeah. Excellent stories. Thank you, Mark. Joe, go ahead, buddy.
Okay, thanks. Well, Mark, I have a couple of questions relating to the album, but before I do that, there's something that I've always wanted to ask Ringo if I was going to meet him or at least compliment him on. So I'm going to ask you in a roundabout way. Okay, now. I go to see Ringo. We all go to see Ringo live. And he used to do, I don't know if he still does it, a routine where he'll say, I have a new album out. And he'll say, how many people have it? And he'll go 1, 2, 3. And I always feel like, no, a lot of us out there appreciate your new albums and your new music. So my question in that regard is, was he aware that people liked his music, his new music? Or did he honestly always feel like, nobody's interested in this?
It never really was negative. All of them, their real time was the Beatles. That's when they were all selling massive amounts of vinyl or CD or tape. And Ringo was always like, it's sort of like how they would give George one song, maybe two songs on an album, because it was so Lennon and McCartney, and Ringo would get one, if he was lucky. And the insecurity or putting himself down sometimes becomes like a not a cover-up, but like, well, I'm not really a singer. Well, yeah, you are. Yeah, you sang Photograph. Yeah, you sang Little Help. You sang Boys. So you sang Good Night. John Lennon wrote that beautiful song for you, Ringo. And sometimes he still needs to hear that. Records are not selling like they used to. And that's, even look at McCartney. They're not selling like they used to. And that's just a sign of the times. Ringo loves recording, and I don't think he'll ever stop. He loves making music. And he's all about peace and love. And if you hear, most of his lyrics are surrounded by peace and love, because that's the message that he wants to give. And he does, like on his birthday, 12 o'clock, everybody say it. And he means it. It's not like, oh, I better do that, that's my image. He really means it. He means it. And for that alone, you got to love him. I don't think, it might be tougher. It might have been tougher on Paul and John when things aren't selling like the Beatles used to sell, because they were like Lennon and McCartney. So George had all those songs during the Beatles, and the Beatles didn't do them. So then when George did All Things Must Pass, that was sort of like him going, maybe you should have listened to me.
Right.
That's but even then it was all done tongue in cheek. I never saw them like get angry with each other. Like I say, all Beatles have yelled at me except for Paul. And George Harrison did this record called Chance with Ravi Shankar. And we were all together and they played it. It was beautiful. And George made these baseball hats that the Ohm sign here. And it was great. And I figured, I gotta do that. But I'll make mine purple. And I'll put the Ohm sign there, and the back will be, there's no place like Ohm. And I did it. And then Ringo got the call from George going, he stole my design, the bastard. And Ringo went, well, George, it is 5,000 years old. But the thing is, George twisted the Ohm sign. And I didn't know my Ohm from my ass in the ground. So the twisted Ohm, I didn't know what the right way was or the wrong way. I just saw the George, and I did it like that. So I had to call him and apologize. George, I didn't know. All right, good. Give me a hat. So I gave him a hat, and I was forgiven. So constantly yelled, but you know what? I probably deserved it. So.
Okay. One of my favorite tracks on the album that we haven't talked about yet is Imagine Me There, which I think is a really beautiful ballad. I was wondering if you could tell us a little about that, maybe the writing of it, input.
That one I think was just me, Ringo, and Gary Burr. Gary Burr and I went over to England, and Ringo's mind is a beautiful thing, because Imagine Me There, what a great title. And he always comes up, why am I wrong all the time? Just stuff that people don't think about. But when Imagine Me There, it's sort of, he misses his wife. He loves Barbara like nobody's business. And whenever he would have to go away, he would miss her. And he would do like, imagine me being there, because that's what I'm doing. Imagining me being there. And the three of us just cut the track. It wasn't the whole band. It was just the three of us. And the songwriting was more intimate, the playing was more intimate, and his vocal was extremely sort of like wonderfully romantic and passionate. And I'd always let him sing how he wanted to. And then if there was something that I wanted to flip or turn around, I would say it. And he'd go, oh yeah. And then he just would do it immediately. And it was done. And he always loves to double track, quite like Ozzy Osbourne. He loved his voice double tracked. It's like John Lennon loving his voice with slap on it, instant karma kind of thing. So that song was very, very intimate. And I'm sure it was about Barbara and his feelings towards her. So the whole process of that was three guys, basically.
Very, very sweet and touching track, that one.
Yeah.
Now, I know you had something to say, and I was thinking about it, about the album cover, the drawing on the album cover. So maybe you could talk about that.
There it is. Well, we were working, and he said, if you want me, I'll be at extension 269. And he just put X 269. And he put it on the wall. And I thought to myself, that's not right. And I had all my colors with me because I was an art student before I was musical. And I went, I'm just going to draw a version of him, what he's wearing today. And I got my stuff and I drew it over that. In fact, if you actually see the album cover, I think on the top of his hat, you see the word Ringo, I think going across the head, if I can remember. And we kind of disguised it a little bit. And then when you see the DVD, you see Dave Gilmour playing, and on the wall is this stupid little picture. And during the whole making of the record, and the famous Henry Dills shot stuff, like so many famous photographers. And at the end, Ringo went, I know what the album cover is going to be. I went, is that picture that Henry Dills took of you outside in front of your huge peace sign? No. Is that picture of you and Barbara in the garden? No. Is it in front of the big tree that's dying? No. Your painting. What? Your painting is the cover of the album. And I believe that he did that. And it's so interesting because, later on, I won a Grammy for Living on the Edge for Aerosmith. My mom only ever looked at me as my son, the painter. Mom, I'm producing a Beatle. Oh no, honey, you're an artist. You don't understand. That was an accident. I'm writing songs and producing a Beatle. Oh, you're such a painter. Why, I oughta. And that's what the whole album cover was based on. And later on, we did a litho of it. And he signed it, I signed it, and he gave it away to the Lotus Foundation, his charity. And that's another high point in my life, is a Ringo Starr album cover I painted. It's like, what was the movie with Tom Hanks? Forrest Gump. I'm like the Forrest Gump of rock. I don't know.
Okay. Well, can I get one more question?
Please.
I don't want to take all the questions, but I think we've all been wondering about this. The Beatle-esque harmonies and that were on a lot of the albums that you were involved with. How deliberate was that? I mean, like on the Christmas album, even it sounds very Beatle-esque, and watching VH1 Storytellers, you get a real Beatle vibe. And I'm thinking that's Mark. I always thought it's Mark trying to ingest that in there. True.
Well, no, but I couldn't help. You don't understand something. I was such a Beatle fan. How could I not do that? And because of his comfort, that's where he came from. So I wanted him to be reminiscent of what he was before. So all of our harmonies were based in what the Beatles would have done. And it's really that simple. And thank God he allowed it. Like he liked it. And I'm proud of that stuff too. I forget what song, Fading In and Fading Out, I think it might be Choose Love. I don't know. They're all mashed together. But one time he said, like, oh, go on out there and pretend you're John and Paul. So we got to. It was like Christmas gift every day doing that. And Gary Burr and I did all the backgrounds. We just sat down. All the clusters of harmonies are just two humans. And sometimes early on it was just me, but that's the sort of Freddie Mercury-esque, blasts of harmony. But he let us do it. And why should he not do it? He's a Beatle. What's he going to do? A disco album? No, let him be who he is.
He did already. No.
I was going to say, he kind of did.
He did that. Right? No, but it worked. And I think, I think some of us here, we look down on the idea. Some fans, that aren't completists, they don't have all the Ringo albums. I thought, well, maybe it would appeal more to the average Beatle fan with those touches in there,
I think so too. Why would they want to hear a record that didn't sound like something that he would have done when he was in that band? And that's why, when we did the, storytellers and stuff, we were in heaven. Joe Walsh on guitar, Simon Kirke is the other drummer, and Ringo. Who wouldn't want to be in that band? Once again, it's that Forrest Gump all over it.
But I'd like to be, and I don't mean me not to. I'll be in the band.
Yeah,
I can't even play anything, so I'll still be in it.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Very good.
Was there ever a time when Ringo thought you were going overboard? Because
Yes.
there are plenty of songs where you're referencing other Beatles songs. And
Yeah, but he actually liked that for most part. There was a few on a song, Elizabeth Reigns, about the Queen. We got to go to the Jubilee and we came back and he wrote, and the best lyric in this, 600 servants use their detergents washing the palace floor, but none of our sins are as bad as the Windsors. It's just like, and that's Ringo. I had nothing to do with that. All on him. Bless his heart. And we did a solo. And this is actually on film somewhere. I don't know. And the solo was great. And Ringo went, Mark, that sounds like something else. And I'm going, no, it doesn't. I'm like a kid. No, it doesn't. Not really. I finished my homework. No, I ate the broccoli. No, Mark. And it was a direct steal from a George Harrison thing on the Abbey Road album. And Ringo said, you have to change it. You have to. And I tried to go, Rich, please. It's a change. And he was adamant. So what we did is we reversed the solo, kept the solo, but reversed it and had him learn the backwards solo forwards. So if you hear the solo on Elizabeth Reigns, if you flip that over, you're going to hear Abbey Road.
Yeah.
But it was that. And then he learned it from the backwards forwards. And then Ringo goes, oh, that's great. That's very George Martin of okay.
Yeah, I think
Mark,
I think that John Lennon used to do a lot of that stuff too.
Oh God,
he owned up to a lot of that stuff.
I know. Well, you have to get away with as much as you can,
Yeah.
But
Mark, speaking of
go ahead.
Speaking of flipping over, I'm sure you're aware of the big vinyl revival that's been going on the last 10 years or so. Was there ever talk of these albums in this period of time being released on vinyl, or was it always just a CD?
No, Ringo wanted it to be, but at that point, the industry wasn't ready for it. Remember, the kids just started listening to vinyl within the last 5 years, maybe. But prior to that, it wasn't cost effective. But I sure would die if they released those on vinyl.
The Christmas album is on vinyl. Christmas album.
Yeah, Christmas and Time Take Time is on vinyl.
Yeah,
but Paul was able to release his stuff on vinyl whenever he would release a new album during that period of time as well, when vinyl was dead, if you will. But it would have been cool if he had a chance to release them on vinyl as well back then.
I know. I mean, I still say an odd prayer that maybe that will show up.
Do you have any say in that? Do you have any say as producer?
No,
would you have any say?
No, once it's done, you can suggest anything that you can, but it's out of your. And that's what I don't like about the business, is they should leave more room for the artist, and have the artist be the one that's calling that shot. If it works, great. If it doesn't, great. Make your vinyl an ashtray, if you want to. But the artist should really be the one to say, yeah, let's do it. But now it's coming back. Now everybody's, now if you make a record, it gets to be vinyl.
Yeah.
Because resurged, which is fantastic.
That's the thing they have on Record Store Day, now.
Right.
Once or twice a year, where they have a lot of albums that were not previously on vinyl coming out on vinyl for the first time. So I keep hoping, I think we all are, that we get those albums on vinyl, because I'm a vinyl collector too.
Me too.
Well, and that's the thing too, because time-wise, it's just under 50 minutes. It would fit on one record if you think about it.
Yeah. I think the labels just look at it as a thing of cost. How much money are we spending? It's that thing. So that's when it gets out of the producer's hands. I mean, we got to sequence it. We never let them have any, put this first, put that fourth. Ringo and I always said, here's the running order. Yeah, which was
cool.
Kit,
we got questions from the audience?
Yes, we have a couple of good questions here. One of them is, not specifically, I mean, it can be Ringo Rama, but from other albums you've worked with Ringo, are there specific songs that you really, that are some of your favorites that you did with Ringo?
I mean, like which ones would be?
Yeah, what are some of your favorites?
Yeah, I think on Vertical Man, I loved Vertical Man, because Ozzy Osbourne, who's a huge Beatle fan, said, Mark, can I go to the Ringo record? But, okay, and he shows up. You're the Vertical Man. I can't believe I'm working with a Beatle. And
that's very good.
that one I love.
Amazing. Mark, you should do the Beatle cartoons from the 60s. Dub the voices over.
They should rehire me. I need the work. Also, like What in the World? Because McCartney loved that song, and he's playing bass on it, and we're singing background together. And I actually love that song. Instant Amnesia, Never Without You. I actually love the song Your Heart So Big, the last song on Vertical Man. And it's just George Martin.
The ballad, the love song.
Yeah. George Martin strings.
What the heck is the name of it? I'm forgetting the sequence. Some fans we forgot the sequence. Landmine?
I'm yours.
I'm yours. Beautiful. I love, and I love Choose Love. That's a great song. And we went for Ticket to Ride on that one. Boom, doom, doom, boom. I mean, there's so many favorites I have. When I hear them again, I go, ooh, I really like that one. I don't remember it, but I love that one. And that's how it works. There's too many to pick. But la-di-da.
I was just thinking, I want to, before I forget this, I got to interject something. Every time I've ever seen you doing that, like live, especially Well, anytime on any show or anywhere where it was performed, you always seem to really get into that part. Now, I don't know what you say really fast. You can't always get what you want, so you want to be so you get what you want. Whatever you say, something like you always seem to really get into that bit.
That's me and Steven Tyler. See, you get what you want. If you want it, you got it. You want it. It was some sort of
something fast.
You got it. You want it. You got it. Some sort of, it was Swahili, but you got Steven Tyler going. Better follow the bastard.
Yeah.
And I love that. And also on Love Me Do, because Ringo did not get to play on the single version because George Martin didn't know who Ringo was, if he was good enough. So was it Andy White?
Yep.
Yeah, studio drummer. Yeah.
Yep.
And so when we did that song, he goes, let's do Love Me Do. Really? Yeah. So Steve Cropper is on guitar from all the Sam and Dave stuff. Steven Tyler's playing the harmonica. And we just did a straightforward rock version of it as opposed to love. It was love me do. And Ringo wanted to do it. How could I or should I say no? You can't. And we also did Christmas Time Is Here Again with Joe Perry playing the guitar solo on the Christmas album. You know, it's just like, it's so great being with a Beatle because everybody wants to be with him in one way or another. Singing background, playing the guitar solo, something. They all want to be a part of it because in our history, especially for those of us in the cocktail hours of our life, I can actually say that I knew all four of them. I got punched by Lennon.
Should we hear that story?
Yes.
The record?
Please. My brothers and I were signed to Elton John's label, Rocket Records. Bernie Taupin was our producer. We're in LA. They threw a party at Rocket Records. And all the groovy LA people were going like, oh yeah, there's a Beatle upstairs, but a Beatle? Yeah, I think it's John Lennon. I looked at Mark, yeah. Ran upstairs and sitting in the corner is John Lennon by himself, smoking with a drink. And I couldn't believe it. And I walked in. John, my name is Mark, and we're on Rocket Records, and Bernie Taupin is my producer, and you're the Walrus, but I want to be the Walrus. And you have Yoko. I'm dating a black girl named Coco. Please, John. And he's looking crazy.
Oh, boy.
And then I sit down, and I sat down, and I couldn't believe it. And he goes, all right, you know, one Beatle question every time we're together. You ask me to punch you in the fucking head. And I couldn't stop myself. So I think, she's well acquainted with the touch of a velvet hand, like a lizard on a window pane. Yeah, it meant nothing. I went, what? Because I write in metaphor, you make up the meaning. And that was like, wow. And what about Run for Your Life? Did you really write that in the bathroom? Oh. Oh. And so 4 times, like in the time that I knew him during that last weekend, Elton would take us to a bar that was a bit dubious, like people in hot pants. And if you dropped your keys, you had to kick them back to your car because it was pretty fabulous. And we're sitting down and getting pretty drunk. And he heard a song, and it was, when will I see you again? When will the precious moments are we in love? And he, oh, I love the song. I couldn't believe that John Lennon. And he goes, come on, Hudson's, let's go have a dance. So all 3 brothers and John are in this place dancing to that song. And then I said, like, John, was there ever a Beatles song that was like that? Oh! And this was like constant. It was constant. And then Ringo well enough, and we were great friends. So when he would yell at me, he could like really yell at me. George yelled at me over the Ohm sign, and Lennon would do it when I would ask a stupid Beatle question. Is it really true that You wanted to sing "Oh Darling"? There you go again, Hudson. Oh, I call it love taps now. So
yeah, I hope it wasn't that hard. That's what I'm saying.
no, it was just kind of like, it wasn't like knocking me out or turning my head. Oh. But being hit by the Beatles, pretty cool.
It's an honor.
Yeah, it was.
Just ask Bob Wooler.
Yeah. Ooh. That's good. That worked.
I'd like to ask a few more questions. One of my favorite songs from Ringo in his entire catalog is Missouri Loves Company. I love the play on words song. And when I spoke to Gary Burr recently on the other podcast that I do, Things We Said Today, he said that was Dean Gracal.
Great.
How do you pronounce that?
Gray Kell. In fact, it's Ringo's lawyer, Bruce Gray Kell. It was his son.
Okay.
And he came up with Missouri Loves Company, as opposed to like Misery Loves Company, which is the same. And then when we got our hands on it, Ringo, all the way from, there's one word, I wish I could remember. There's one word in that song that Ringo pronounces wrong. I'm trying to think, yes, Virginia, there's a world to see. There's one word in there he pronounces wrong. And I went, Ringo, I don't know if that's the right way to pronounce it. He goes, it is for me. And then in the end was the I Miss You, Harry. When you hear me go, and they go, we miss you, Harry, because they were great friends as well.
Sure.
And Dave Gilmour is playing the guitar solo. So he walks in, and there he is in his Pink Floydness. He hears the song, goes, yeah, that's great. And he starts playing the solo. Now, as a producer, when a guitar player bends a note, it's really difficult to double track that because the bend makes the note oscillate like, He did 4 tracks and every single note was completely in tune and completely the same action. And it was like, it blew my mind. And then Ringo went, oh, thanks a lot, Dave, that's great. Which one do you want to use? And Gilmour went, all 4 of them. And I went, yes. And so the whole solo is 4 tracks of Dave Gilmour. Just like, there it is. I mean, those are the things that I learn every time I'm producing anybody. I learn something a brand new way. And that was one way, like 4 tracks of Gilmour. Whoever would have thought that? He just said, use all 4. And there it was. Done. And it's a great song too,
It's a perfect guitar solo and such a full sound. And
I know. It's like, it's a weird thing with me as a producer when I have nothing to say. It's a little scary because I might say and to yell and point. And I didn't have to say anything. I could have gone for coffee. But, it's the God-given talent that all of these people have. Like when George played King of Broken Hearts, Ringo cried when he sent it back to us with the multi-track. And when we heard it in the studio, Ringo started crying because it was done with that much love. And it was George Harrison playing that slide guitar that can be recreated by anybody. And it's just like, I don't know. I'm lucky. I've been blessed. And then talking to you guys makes me relive it again. Probably when we hang up, I'll uncontrollably weep.
Oh
no!
Oh no!
Mark, who played the that bit on the VH1 Storytellers? King of Broken Hearts was done on that, wasn't it? I believe.
Yes, it was. Steve Dudas played the solo, and Ringo made it just like George. You see, and there's certain Beatle land that you're not supposed to screw around, and it's like you're not gonna go boom da 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 da. No, You finish the riff like you're supposed to. And Ringo went to Steve, learned that solo exactly like George. And he did. He did. And he did the same for Octopus's Garden, which is not easy for a guitar player to play. And it was like really a struggle, but Dudas learned it. And Ringo says certain things you don't mess about. In fact, we were doing the Storytellers. We were doing Little Help from My Friends, and Jack Blades from Night Ranger was the bass player. Great bass player, great singer. And I just said, Jack, when it gets to the famous, we just stand up and walk out on me, that famous McCartney thing. You better play it exactly like that, or every bass player on the planet is going to want to bludgeon you with their bass if you do it wrong. So there we are doing the show. We just stand up and walk, and Jack went like, Ringo looked at me like, what the hell was that? And I knew it was treble. This look he gave me, I went, oh, I don't want to be Jack Blades when we get off stage. Because you mess with. I mean, even in McCartney's band, they're playing the stuff. I mean, it sounds different because it's not the Beatles, but all of the riffs are the Beatles. They're copying that stuff. You got to stay true. You have to. At least the famous stuff. Other things you can get away. Babies in a table on the 1 after 9. You can kind of mess about with that. Other things you just can't. You're not allowed.
When certain parts are iconic, you got to treat them like they're sacred.
Yeah, you do. You do. And because I was such a Beatle fan, I'm more heavy-handed with keeping that stuff honest and true. It has to be.
I just want to add about Missouri Loves Company. What I love so much about the song is, like I said, the double entendre and how you could apply using states as the names of women. You know, yes, Virginia, there's a world. It's like Georgia on My Mind. It works on a couple of levels there.
Yes.
And I just thought it was so brilliant how that was done.
Thank you. It was really, really cool. And Dean Grickel was flying the plane on that one.
Yeah.
And then we all added in, I think it might have been Niagara Falls. I don't want to go like Niagara Falls. It's Niagara. No, it's not. It's Niagara. Okay.
Wow. Okay, Ringo.
It's Niagara.
Could you just expand a little bit on, because you were talking about, you said to Ringo, you are a singer. There's a lot more to being a singer than hitting notes. And I think one of the things about Ringo, what I love about his singing is there's a certain tone in his voice. There's a certain warmth in his voice. When he does ballads, especially like you were talking about Goodnight or one of those songs, you know, it's so suitable for that. And I don't think he gets the credit that he deserves for being a good singer for the kind of music that he puts out.
Well, no, but if you look at the other three guys in the band, you have Lennon and McCartney, and that's a whole nother, and then you throw in George, and by the time you got to Ringo, it's his honesty is beautiful. His integrity, because he has a lot of integrity when he sings, and he really does care. I think sometimes he wishes, like he'll tell the story about Back Off Boogaloo, and it was based with T-Rex, Mark Bolan. And he would always go, oh, back off, oh, Boogaloo. And Ringo said, that's a great song title. And then Ringo said that he was in bed, and all like, back off, Boogaloo. I said, back off, Boogaloo. And he went, oh, and he woke up and he tried to find a cassette, went through his children's toys, and he's singing, back off, Boogaloo. He goes, but I was looking so long, it turned into Mac the Knife. Oh, those shots. And that's like, that shows the integrity that he does possess.
Mm-hmm.
He really does care. He really wants it to be great. And I love his voice, not just because I'm used to it, but I love his interpretation of his music. He doesn't push himself to sing too high. And I got in trouble a couple of times on one of the songs, For Love. You hurt my throat. Yeah, but listen how good you sound. I hate it. And he just hated it because he didn't want to sing that high. So I will say, Rich, just grab onto your jelly sack and make the note.
Do they think Frankie Valli give an advice?
Yeah, there you go, Frankie Valli.
Oh, wow.
You were talking about lyrics. I know in one interview that you did with me, we talked about Christmas Eve, which I think deserves to be a classic because it's such a beautiful song.
Thank you. I think
Remember Christmas from Nilsson, you know.
Yep.
There was a line in there, I see your presence and double meaning there.
Of course.
So he comes up with these lines all the time in his song.
And that was just the two of us. You know, I was at his apartment in London. And I said, you know, why don't we do like a real simple kind of ballad about someone, the lights on the tree and the snow. It has this very sort of melancholy lyric. And as soon as I heard him sing it with that voice, I got goosebumps, or I had gas, one or the other. Something happened. And maybe that was oversharing, but still, I love that song. That song to me, I wish Barbra Streisand or someone of that ilk would cut because it's that good. And I'm not just saying it because I co-wrote it with Ringo. Even if I didn't write it, I would love that song. And I do.
But the whole arrangement itself that you worked on was so perfect for it, like Good Night.
Yes.
Like
I did it on
For Me, you know, on Good Night Vienna, that kind of thing with an orchestra.
Yep.
So
absolutely. And you know, the one thing that I have that during the making of that record, Ringo wasn't in the studio one day, and he said where the Beatles used to work in Abbey Road. He goes, you know, we were just in a corner. If you look at the top of the steps and kind of go to the right, that corner there is where we set up. In that big studio, our little area was there. And I went, wow. Now, they were putting tie lines in because now, you know, things had changed in the orchestras. So they cut a hole through the wall and they were putting in cords so they could record other studios through that room. And I looked down at the floor and I saw a piece of the hardwood floor was kind of loose. And I went, I'm going to get a piece of the floor. I'm getting the floor from Abbey Road. And the engineer went, no, Mark, don't do that. But as you can tell, I can't be stopped. And so I went, oh, I won't do it. And then I went to the second engineer and said, do you have a screwdriver? Yeah. I took off my shoe and I went down to the floor. And it's like, it was like a long, it's like this, it was only like that thick and a long piece of wood. So it's not like normal hardwood floors. It was, they're all thin. And I got it and I put it in my coat and I said, I got to get out of here. I got to at least bring this back to the hotel. And I said to the engineer, let's just take like a lunch break. He goes, why a lunch break? We're in the middle of the work. He said, I need a lunch break. Okay, Scotty. And I hugged him and he felt the wood of the thing on his chest. He went, you didn't. I said, I don't know what you're talking about. I got it. And I have a piece of Abbey Road in my house.
Wow.
And then he said the next day, you better clear that with Ringo. And I'm thinking, I'm so tired of being in trouble. I don't want John to punch me anymore.
So tired of getting in trouble.
So
Mark?
I call up Ringo. Hello, Mark, how's it going? Oh, it's going great. We put a tabla and some sitars on them, some bagpipes. Oh, great. I went, Rich, I have something to tell you. What did you do this time? I took a piece of the Abbey Road floor. What? Yeah, the floor. I took a screwdriver and kind of loosened it. I put it in my coat. So if you want me to bring it back, I will. He goes, is it where my drums were? And I went, Yes. And he goes, then it's okay.
Wow. Well, you would think that writing and singing with Ringo and hanging out within the studio would be pretty good without the floor. But
yeah,
can't blame you. Can't blame you.
The floor is a piece of the Beatles. It wasn't just being punched.
All four.
Right.
This was like, this is where their stuff was. Right there. And I have it.
Cool. Mark, we love a bunch of stuff that Ringo is doing currently, you know, his EPs and his latest albums. Have you kept up with Ringo's catalog since your partnership?
You know, I do. And his stuff is great, and he's got all those guys playing on it. He's never going to be bad in my eyes because he cares too much. As a producer and as a co-writer of his, I would do things a little bit like that edge you were talking about. I would bring that back if he was open for it. But I love it. I think that, the Diane Warren song, I think he's great. Like, I'm a fan. So it's like, I love everything that he does. I want him to keep doing it. He's now got long hair again. It's great.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, he had that hairstyle a long time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No, I know. And it's like, all of his energy, 83 years old, and he's still kicking some major ass.
It's one of the things that you can't dismiss is all the wonderful hairstylings of all four of them throughout there.
No, I know.
I mean, I don't know Ringo, but I've always thought, you could tell me if I'm right or not about this. A lot of it has to do with Ringo's, when he became sober in 1988 and went back on tour and started really recording again and keeping up with the work and the touring. That's what he's always said he loves to do, and that's why he got in the business in the first place, to play drums and play with great people. Do you think that's also therapeutic too? As much as it's fun.
No question. And I can say that to you as another guy that's sober 21 years. Whenever you get to play any kind of music, that's your high. You don't need a pill. You don't need the smoke. You don't need a needle. All of that is in the song. And he loves playing drums.
Yeah.
He loves drumming.
And you could just tell from the enthusiasm that he shows with every tour, every side of it. Wow. He's doing it every year. When he started with the All-Stars, it'd be a gap of 3 years or 2 years. Now it's every year.
Yep. He's loving it.
Yep. Yeah. Well, and that's what really struck me when when you watch the DVD of, the Chronicle, the making of Ringo Rama, is just the sheer joy that was in those sessions. I mean, you could just see it.
That's what I mean. And feel it. And that's what I mean. I never look back at that with anything other than it was one of the greatest times of my life.
Right.
Wow.
It was.
One of the funny parts is you see Timothy B. Schmidt. He comes in and does his backing vocal, and then he's done, and then he just leaves.
No, he's gone.
That's great.
It was like that the whole time. People would show up and just do it. Brian Wilson. It's just like show up, they do it, and they're gone.
Alanis Morissette, right?
Yeah.
Vertical Man.
Yeah.
Steven Tyler.
Yeah. And Tom Petty.
Yep.
Excellent.
Scott Weiland from Stone Temple.
Yeah.
So many great people. Like I said, I'm lucky. Pretty lucky.
Yeah. Can you just briefly talk about, some of the people that are part of the Roundheads that you don't hear too much about, like Steve Dudas? You've been with him a long time, haven't you, Steve?
Yeah, forever. He was in the Hudson Brothers band, so I go way back. And I wanted to have my guys around me for my comfort. And they happened to just love everything about Ringo. And Gary Burr, same thing. A co-writer of mine, a great friend of mine. And I just said, you got to come and be in the Roundheads. I was like, are you kidding? No, come on. Because when we sing together, it's pretty remarkable. And all of that stuff really made it fun. It really became fun. Jim Cox, on piano. He's played with everybody from James Taylor to you name it, Streisand. And Ringo loved the band. Still getting a guest star like Joe Walsh. Still seeing people come in from time to time, Simon Kirke. And all of those guys in that band were great. In fact, Greg Bissonette, I got him the job with Ringo. And now he's like the second drummer all the time because he's incredible. And also a Beatle freak and knows every drum fill that Ringo ever played. So, you know, music moves on and we have to be able to let that happen. But in the same time, it stays forever. You know, that's the great part about music. I've met people in my life who hate their parents, who hate God, who hate broccoli, who hate the Yankees. It goes on and on and on. I've never met anybody in my lifetime that hates music. Never. It's the one language that we all listen to. Now, you might like rap, you might like heavy metal, you might like jazz, you might like country. Doesn't make any difference the genre that you like. It's still music. And that's what's cool. Never. I'm stopping.
Thank God for music.
Yeah, it's the only thing I'm good at. You know, I'm bad at math. I'm a good kisser, and it's downhill after that. So I better stick with the music.
Before we go, on the deluxe edition, there are 3 bonus tracks that were added.
No, that's right.
I wonder if you could shed some light about those songs.
I think okay, Ray. I think okay. It's gonna be okay, Ray.
Okay, Ray. Blink is another song.
Blink.
And I'm Home.
Yeah. And I'm Home. Like we wrote that, like I think it was at Ringo's house. And it was me, Steve Dudas, and Ringo. And Ringo wanted to have something cool. And so like I love the background vocals on that song too. Okay, Ray, he loved that. To him was sort of just slip out the back, Jack. You know, it's Paul Simon. Make a new plan, Stan. You don't need to be coy, just listen to me. Well, that's going to be okay, Ray. It's going to, it kind of had a similar motif to it.
Right.
And he loved it for its, he liked it for its obladi obladanus. Had that sort of feel. Blink, we actually wrote for a film. And it just happened to be a track that was sitting there that we worked on and put it in. You know, there's some stuff that we've never released. I'm actually trying to do a thing called Demo Days, like DAZE, and have it be some of our songs that never made it to record. But are so much fun. Ringo playing cardboard boxes, like as drums. You know, he loved the bootlegs. He wasn't complaining like when all the bootlegs of the Beatles stuff came out. Ringo always loved them.
Oh, interesting.
But he loved the bootlegs. And I think because of that, I think because of that, you can get away with releasing stuff that's a little not completely professional.
Right.
Like, you know, but hey, he's Ringo. Why not?
Is there
I'll buy it.
Is there a lot more film footage that exists of the sessions for Ringo Rama that we haven't seen because we've got the documentary?
Yes, there's a bunch. There's a whole bunch of McCartney's that I have. That's good. Like we filmed everything, and it's a matter of. I mean, I think Ringo will let it come out when he wants it to. You know, but the Ringo Rama stuff, we had so much fun, and I'm sure it will see the light of day. It's just one of those things that I never want to cross a line and make Ringo uncomfortable or do something that he wouldn't want me to do. So in this case, when he wants it to come out, I will so share it with you guys. Really,
thank you.
Great.
Really good stuff. I promise. Now,
any last questions?
I think that's great. Thank you.
We've covered it.
I know.
Wonderful
There's one question. I just felt like bad. I don't know if Susan is still watching, but she asked a question. Her first question, and she just said she had a question for Mark. She said, "I remember the Hudson Brothers song, 'So You Are a Star.'"
Yeah.
It was probably your biggest hit. Is it also your favorite Hudson Brothers song?
It is my favorite Hudson Brothers song, but the full circle of that, on my solo album called The Artist, when we were on Dave Gilmour's boat mixing Ringo Rama, in the back room, he had like a drum kit and a piano. And I was back there and Ringo went, "Oh, that sounds kind of Beatley." And it was "So You Are a Star." And he goes, "Let's do a version for your mom." And I went, "Really?" So he's playing drums. I'm like, I wish I could actually play you guys something. Wait, because I screwed up. Wait, hold on. Let me see if I can find this. I'm so bad at all this stuff too, so forgive me.
Oh, no problem. Oh, this ought to be interesting. Wow. So this is
listen,
got it.
I'm just gonna play. Okay, listen, you'll hear him making fun of me, which is pretty funny. So listen. Oh, wait. No, I'm not gonna think. I'm just gonna play. It's fine. No, I'm not gonna think. I'm just gonna play. Here we go. You don't think all week, now you're thinking.
Having trouble here.
Yeah, I don't hear anything.
You hear the drum coming.
We're not really hearing anything.
I'm not hearing
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
We heard Ringo joke.
We heard Ringo
Yeah,
talking.
Yeah.
It's on The Artist, and I got to re-record that song because when the reviews came out for the Hudson, they said it's kinetic pop. It's so much like the Beatles, and all of a sudden there I am doing that song with the Beatles. So it's like once again the Forrest Gump full circle. One of my favorites.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Just full circle.
Excellent.
I'm a lucky man.
Mhm.
Nice. Since you mentioned the Hudson Brothers, I think this would be a good opportunity. I know you posted something on Facebook that you guys are planning to do a concert together.
Yeah, we've decided after all this time, while the three of us are still on the planet, that we should get together and do something. And we're looking at probably October when it will happen. And we're going to make it not going to be a go-go dancer and a drummer that's too loud. 3 guys, piano, guitar, bass, telling the story of everything. And it's going to be fun. So get ready for that. And they're going to stream it, whatever it is. So any of you Hudson Brother fans, just ask my brother Brett.
Susan says, thank you, Mark.
Information,
Susan says, thank you, Mark, for answering so awesomely.
You're welcome.
Awesomely. Okay.
Great.
Okay. Not only that, I also wanted to point out, I saw that you were in Hamburg, Germany.
I just got back.
Yeah, and you were part of a Beatles convention there called Come Together.
Yes.
What was that all about?
Earl Slick, Kazim Sultan from Todd Rundgren.
Sure.
And we, John Lennon, but it was the first time I ever got to sing Mother.
Wow.
Yeah. And I can actually do it justice. I can do, the screaming is inside of me. And it was the first time I'd ever done it. And I was so happy that I did. And we were in Hamburg and going places where the Beatles were.
Right.
You're walking on the cobblestones that they walked on. It's all that sort of Beatley stuff that we as fans just enjoy. I didn't speak a word of German. I know "Come Give Me Deine Hand" because it's "I Want to Hold Your Hand" by the Beatles. Outside of that, my German really sucked.
That's all you can say.
So, but we had a blast, and now we're back, and we're moving forward.
Yeah, and I also saw there's a website for this convention that they have there, and they still have the names, the Indra, the Kaiserkeller there.
Yeah.
Where did you play?
I don't know where I was. And I hate to silly. They say, "Mark, go stand there and sing." Okay. And I don't know where Brunhilde, the Fruities. I didn't understand anything they were saying to me. Who flirting different garden guard?
Okay, sure.
Answered with a smile.
And you saw about 3:00.
Yeah.
Did you put a toilet bowl ring around your neck while you were playing in Germany?
No, I didn't want to go that far. Very funny.
Oh.
There's
Okay,
one
guys.
thing I want to plug here, because Mark is still working with Gary Burr and Mark Morando, and they're part of a tribute band to CSNY, the Laurel Canyon Band, and they're actually performing this week. If any of you live near Tennessee, they're going to be at the Mull House in Columbia, Tennessee, this Thursday night.
And it's a beautiful theater. And we're playing the Bluebird on Wednesday. The Bluebird. That's more of a songwriting thing. But the key to it is, any of you people that are near Nashville, and I'm not bragging, but we're 3 really good singers. And when we do those Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young harmonies, I would brag how good it is. No drummer, no go-go dancers, 3 guitars, a piano, and we just go get it. And it's having so much fun. It's not necessarily like I'm not going to buy a house doing it, but at this point in my life, I love playing. It's like Ringo. He's 83 and he's still playing.
Right.
I want to still play when I'm 83. Even though I'll be in a diaper, but I can still sing.
And it's great to see that you're still active out there doing this. Gary Burr is still out there performing with his wife, Georgia Middleman. She's a good songwriter too.
She's fantastic.
Yeah.
They're great. I know. Those are the plugs.
And where can we find the information about you? Do you have a website? Do you have where can we find all this?
I think the Laurel Canyon is a website.
Okay, great.
Gary has his own website.
Yes.
And he has a website with his wife, Georgia.
Yeah.
And whatever dates he's playing are on there. So if you're with the Laurel Canyon Band, then Mark will be with him. Both.
Yeah.
Okay.
And a Hudson Brother one's going to be showing up pretty soon too. I'm
LaurelCanyonBand.com.
LaurelCanyonBand.com.
Okay.
Excellent. I'll put that in the description when
Put
this
it
is
in.
over. Will do.
It was great talking to you guys, by the way.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
And
Thank you, Mark.
I hope you enjoyed it.
Oh, we enjoyed it. Thank you so much for joining us. Your stories were just wonderful and a great way to celebrate Ringo's birthday and Ringo Rama.
Yes, and I send you peace and love, and I'll see you around when you bend over. What?
Just so you know, you always have a home here. Anytime you come on.
Anytime you want to come back.
We'll do it again.
Remember.
I'll drink to that.
Perfect.
Back.
Cheers. Thank you, Mark.
See you later.
Okay, Mark.
All right.
Thank you, Mark.
Wow. Okay. All right.
Wasn't that fantastic?
Wow.
He's still on. Hey.
Oh, okay. I think he's there. Oh, no. Oh, there we go.
Oh, there we go.
Yep.
All right.
Wow, that was really
wow.
fun. That was terrific.
Oh, is that fun?
Oh
my gosh.
I don't know why he doesn't put out a book. Seriously.
Yeah.
He should write a book.
Good idea.
Absolutely.
Yes.
All right. So
why don't we tell everybody what we're doing? And we'll start with Tom.
Well, thank you, Ken, and thank you for, reaching out to Mark Hudson for this late notice, and thankfully he was glad to do this. But for Two Legs, 2 weeks ago we did our 81st birthday celebration for Macca with having Luca Prazzi on, and we talked about Another Day, A Woman, a Why single. The history of the single, and how all of that came together. So that was a lot of fun. We had our woman on the scene, I like to call her, Joan Borelli, back on. She had the amazing 2 week where she, or I should say like 10 days, where she went to the Conan McCartney show in Tribeca. Then she flew to England to see the Evolver 63 with Mark Lewison, and then she went to Paul McCartney tribute at the Cavern, and then she bought the deluxe story or photos book that had McCartney's signature. So she had just a crazy week, and she told us all about it, and that was amazing. This past weekend we watched and discussed the McCartney special from 1986 that was on BBC way back when, and we had a lot of fun doing that. And we'll do more stuff like that in the future. This upcoming Saturday, we'll drop our newest episode. It's going to be called 21 in the 21st Century, where a fan of ours, he suggested that we do, a double album with the best, what we think is the best material, or our favorite material, I should say, of Paul's 21st century output. So that was a lot of fun. And a lot more coming up. Yeah. So find us on YouTube at Two Legs, a Paul McCartney podcast, and please subscribe.
Okay. The hits just keep on coming from Two Legs.
Yes, they do. Yeah.
Joe?
As usual, I don't have much to say, but this time I'm going to read off some of my videos. Over at my channel, Mean Mr. Mayo, you got stuff like my record cabinet broke. You can see that adventure. My record cabinet broke. I have another video where I showed some picture sleeves, Beatles picture sleeves you might be interested in. Flea market, hanging around there and browsing around. 2 weeks ago, we did a Fab Gab show. Kid O'Toole was one of the guests on there. We discussed the new Beatles song, or what we think, speculation. All in speculation, what we know so far, what Paul has said, Ringo, what everyone has said. And other stuff too, assorted stuff over at Mean Mr. Mayo on YouTube.
Okay, that's it.
All
I got to do more stuff.
All right. Before we get to Kit, I was on vacation for almost a month.
Yeah.
So
well, that's the shortest one ever.
Yep.
The shortest I've ever heard you say.
But I'm back with a new trivia question on my website, kenmichaelsradio.com. As always, you can win 1 of 10 prizes on there. Books, CDs, DVDs, you name it. Things We Said Today, my other podcast show with Darren DeVivo and Ellen Kozin. We will have a new show coming out probably this week. It'll be some kind of a tribute for Ringo. And there'll be new shows coming on my YouTube channel, Ken Michaels Radio, probably this week. So I'm getting back in the swing of things. I had a very exciting time in Hawaii with my wife for a couple of weeks. And if you're a Todd Rundgren fan, I know Mark Hudson mentioned him before because of Chasm Sultan, who's the bass player in Todd's band and also in Utopia. I attended something called Todd Stock, which is something that Todd Rundgren does periodically ever since he turned 60 years old. He gets together with his fans for about a week and they hang out together, and some of the fans are musicians, amateur and professional. They jam at night. Todd watches them, sometimes jams with them. There's any kind of different types of activities that could happen. And this particular year, he did a repeat of what he did in the first year of Todd Stock, which was he had it held, well, in Kauai, where he lives, and we all got to spend some time in his home. which is really cool. How many rock stars do that? But yeah, I had an amazing time this last month or so with my wife, and now just getting back into the swing of things. So hopefully there'll be some new stuff coming out this week. And don't forget Every Little Thing, my syndicated radio show. You can hear every single week as it's on demand. And that's about it.
All right. Okay. Well, I spent a few days in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin last week. It was lovely.
That's fine.
It was lovely. Anyway, so yeah, not Hawaii though. So first of all, you can find us, of course, here at Talk More Talk, right on this channel, and please hit that subscribe button. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell your enemies, tell your friends, everybody. We're trying to get those numbers up, so please up. So please please hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. Also, you can find us, of course, on Facebook, and if you hit the like button there, you'll be notified of upcoming episodes and news and all kinds of stuff, the shenanigans that we're up to individually. You can also find us on Twitter at talkmoretalk1, the number 1. Also our website, talkmoretalk.com. And you can email us at talkmoresolotalk.com or at gmail.com, sorry, where you can send us feedback if you have topic ideas that you might like to see us cover. Let us know that as well. We love to hear from you. So I guess that's everything there. As far as I go, I'm pretty psyched because tomorrow, July 11th, I'm going to be doing another Tuesday Night Record Club where we're going to be discussing Michael Jackson's Thriller. So I'm pretty psyched,
Really?
as you can imagine. So joining our good buddy Ken Womack, he invited me back on his show. We're going to be going into the making of the album, the demos. I mean, I'm going to be taking you deep into this album. You're going to hear it like you've never heard it before. And so that is tomorrow night. There's still time to register. It is absolutely free. It's 7:30 p.m. Eastern. So I hope to see you there. It is going to be a fun night. You're going to see me geek out. So you don't want to miss it. Come on.
Nikki's looking forward to it.
That's right. Tell her to get ready.
Wait.
I've got stuff ready. I mean, this is my time to shine, okay? Also, just out today, my latest course, and it's going to be actually a 4-part series on the British invasion. I'm really excited to be teaching this. Part 1.
What's the British invasion? Oh,
yeah.
I know.
Yep, you know what that is. And I'm going to be covering it from its earliest beginnings through the 1980s. And so part 1 starts in September. Yep, part 1 starts in September. These are the kind of the roots, the earliest beginnings of it in England and the formation of the Mersey beat. So it will be 2 classes. So I am putting up the registration probably after this show on my page, Facebook page, on the Talk More Talk page. And so registration is open. So I will post all that info for you. So it'll be a great course. So I sent Nikki and others an email, so she knows about this probably already. So anyway, hope to see you all there. It'll be fun course. I'm really looking forward to it. So I think that's everything right now.
All right, Kit. Well, this has been tremendous. What an honor it was.
Yeah.
My
favorite show.
Yep, absolutely.
right now.
Yep.
Let's get Mark on again and other members of the round. They're always welcome here. Anyone that's worked with any of the Beatles
of course,
in their solo careers and as a group, they're welcome here. Thanks so much to all of you for joining us for this special edition where we talked about Ringo Rama celebrating its 20th anniversary this year. And we'll see you in a couple of weeks. Thanks so much for tuning in. Take care.
Emphasis in your mind.
Happy birthday, Ringo.